Disclaimer: this video is for informational and educational purposes only. Nothing in this video constitutes legal, medical, or health advice. The events described are based on publicly available information at the time of production. Viewers should consult qualified professionals for any legal or medical guidance. This channel does not make any claims about ongoing investigations or legal proceedings. A passenger on a cruise ship pulled out their phone and started recording. On screen, the ship's captain was making an announcement. One passenger had died. The captain's message was calm, reassuring, and, as we now know, dangerously wrong.
Tragic as it is, it was due to natural causes. It is not infectious.
Passengers went back to their cabins. Life on the ship continued as normal. Dinner was served. Shore excursions were planned. Over the following days, more people fell ill. Then another passenger died. Then another. By the time the World Health Organization confirmed what was actually happening on board, 3 people were dead, dozens were sick, and that passenger's phone footage had been seen by millions. The disease was Hantavirus, and the captain's reassurance that it was not contagious was not just wrong, it was the opposite of the truth. Welcome to Compliance Edge, where we cover the stories behind the failures that cost lives, money, and trust. Today we're looking at one of the most alarming cases of crisis communication failure in recent memory. Before we get into what went wrong on the ship, it's worth understanding what hantavirus actually is, because most people have never heard of it. Hantavirus is a group of viruses carried primarily by rodents. In most parts of the world, the main way humans get infected is through contact with infected rodents, their droppings, urine, or saliva. In those cases, it does not spread from person to person. But there is one strain that is different. The Andes strain of hantavirus, found primarily in South America, is the only known strain that can spread directly between humans. It is rare, but it is real, and it is dangerous. The symptoms of hantavirus infection begin like a common illness: fever, fatigue, muscle aches. Within days, it can progress to hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, a severe respiratory disease where the lungs fill with fluid. There is no specific cure. Treatment is supportive. The fatality rate can reach 40%. This is not a disease you manage by telling people everything is fine. The MV Hondius is a Dutch expedition cruise ship. In April 2026, it was carrying passengers on a voyage when the first passenger died on board. The ship's captain made an announcement. A passenger, travel vlogger Ruhi Sine, filmed it.
It was due to natural causes. It is not infectious. The ship is safe.
Passengers were not told to isolate. They were not given specific health guidance. Life on the ship continued largely as normal. Several passengers left the ship after the announcement, dispersing across airports and countries before anyone knew what was actually spreading on board. Over the following days, more people became seriously ill. More passengers were transferred to hospitals. Then a second passenger died. Then a third. The World Health Organization issued a formal disease outbreak notice. Health authorities in multiple countries began tracing passengers. The Andes strain of hantavirus was confirmed. Authorities in the United States began monitoring passengers who had returned home. A flight attendant connected to the outbreak was also identified as a case. The ship eventually anchored off Praia, Cape Verde, where it remained while authorities managed the response. Now let's talk about what actually went wrong. Because this is not simply a story about a virus. It is a story about crisis communication, duty of care, and the obligations that come with being responsible for hundreds of people in an enclosed space. Cruise ship operators have legal obligations under international maritime law and domestic regulations to protect the health and safety of passengers. These include obligations to report outbreaks, to implement infection control measures, and, critically, to inform passengers accurately about health risks that may affect them. When the captain announced that the first death was not infectious, one of two things was true. Either the captain did not know what the actual cause of death was, in which case, making that specific reassurance was premature and reckless, or the captain had information that was not communicated accurately to passengers, Either way, passengers made decisions, including the decision to leave the ship, based on information that turned out to be wrong. Those decisions had consequences not just for the passengers themselves, but for the countries they returned to, the people they came into contact with, and the broader public health response. This is the essence of a compliance failure in crisis communication. When the people responsible for managing a situation provide inaccurate or incomplete information, the consequences spread far beyond the original incident. There are well-established protocols for managing suspected infectious disease outbreaks on vessels. They exist precisely because cruise ships are enclosed environments where infections can spread quickly, and because passengers come from and return to many different countries. The protocols require careful, accurate communication, not false reassurance designed to prevent panic. Passengers on the MV Hondius later told journalists they felt they had not been well informed. One described continuing life on the ship as normal, even as the situation was developing. That is not an accident. That is a communication failure with identifiable causes. The legal and regulatory consequences of this incident are still unfolding. Multiple countries are involved in contact tracing. The WHO has issued a formal outbreak notice. The ship's operator will face scrutiny from maritime regulators, from public health authorities, and very likely from the passengers and families of those who died. In cases like this, the legal questions center on what was known, when it was known, and what actions were taken, or not taken, in response. The gap between the captain's announcement and the WHO's confirmed outbreak notice will be examined carefully. Cruise companies have faced significant legal consequences for health and safety failures before. In the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, several cruise operators faced lawsuits from passengers and crew over the handling of outbreaks on board. The same legal frameworks, negligence, duty of care, failure to warn, apply here. For the families of the 3 people who died, the question is not just what happened, it is whether it could have been prevented if the communication had been accurate and the protocols had been followed. The captain on the MV Hondius may not have intended to mislead anyone. Crisis situations are chaotic. Information is often incomplete, but that is precisely why protocols exist, because in a crisis, the instinct to reassure people can override the obligation to inform them accurately. Compliance in crisis communication is not about saying everything is fine. It is about saying what you know, being clear about what you don't know, and giving people the information they need to protect themselves. When that breaks down, as it did here, the consequences are measured not in fines or regulatory penalties, but in lives. This is Compliance Edge. If this video was useful, subscribe. New videos every week.